Speakers are on. Okay. I confirmed. I'll give this right back to you.
Good evening. We're going to start momentarily. I just want to let people know that there is seating upstairs on the third floor if there's not enough seating there. And for those with physical limitations, if you want to come on the inside of the bar, please feel free to come inside the bar. What time is it?
You have 1 minute.
Okay. We'll start promptly at 6 o'clock. The time of the meeting having arrived, we will call the meeting to order. Good evening. I'm Eden E. Simmons, co-chair of the Housing Committee, and with me this evening is Councilor Sumbul Siddiqui, our Deputy Clerk Paula Crane, our Vice Mayor Jan Devereaux, my aide Neil Alpert, Councilor Dennis Carlone, our Mayor Mark McGovern, and representing the Affordable Housing Trust, Peter Daly. The call of the meeting is as follows. The Housing Committee shall meet to continue discussions on the affordable housing overlay and other related matters. It's good to see everyone. Tonight, the Housing Committee is continuing its ongoing discussion about the proposed affordable housing overlay district. As my co-chair and I have said throughout the process, we want to ensure that as many members of the community as possible get an opportunity to weigh in, to share their thoughts, to participate in the discussion. And that is why we're here this evening. We are once giving the hearing over completely, God bless you, to public comment. Tonight's hearing comes on the heel of last week's roundtable, which the City Council devoted to further vetting of the proposed overlay district. So in the interest of giving as much time to public comment as possible, I'm going to be very brief. But in an effort to set the table, as we get underway this evening, I want to say this. So much of our discussion has focused on things like density, building setbacks, building heights, and so forth. I don't want to be dismissive of those items because I know that it's important, because they are all legitimate topics that are worthy of discussion. But I'm also urging all of us to remember the human element. We are not just talking about an extra story here or there or some open space. Ultimately, we are talking about people, families, and we're talking about doing what we can to allow our affordable housing to be built in the fairest way possible throughout our city. We're talking about telling the teachers of our children that we want to make it possible for them to live here. We are telling our men and women who serve on the police force, then keep our streets safe, that we want to make it possible for them to live here. We're telling the people who serve us in their restaurants that we want to make it possible to live here. We want to say to our grandchildren, mine included, that we want to make it possible for you to live here. These are the points that we want to point out, that we want to be able to build affordable housing. Now, are we going to build enough for everyone that wants to live here? Probably not, I agree. We'll never be able to house everyone. But we can serve as an example. We can serve as an example to cities and towns around us, showing that they were willing to give up a little, to have a little less elbow room We're willing to give a little bit of a backyard if it means we can build just a few units of housing that can be welcoming, compassionate, and big-hearted. We want to be a big-hearted community. And giving up a little, I argue that we'll be giving up a lot. I again, don't want to take more time from you, the public, to speak. We're going to now open public comment. Each person can speak for a moment, up to 2 minutes. Our deputy clerk will have a timer, but that will ring. That's at the end of your time. Please be respectful to other people. If you want to speak less, certainly, but by not speaking more, you're not taking away time from someone else. So I want to thank you in advance for coming here. I want to thank you for your participation. And the first person. Okay. There's a packet that's out there. It's going to be made part of the public record. When you speak, if your comments are in writing, you can put them in the basket. If not, the deputy clerk has a card. You can send them to her. If she gets them by midnight, they'll become a part of this meeting's record. Our first speaker is Trudy Goodman, followed by Kevin Lee. Trudy Goodman. Followed by Kevin Lee and Walter McDonald. Yes, I see you, ma'am. Not a problem. Bring the mic down to your mouth. Speak loudly.
Always be nice. As an actor, I should know when a mic is on.
There you go.
Okay. So I live at 1221 Cambridge Street in Inman Square, and I'm sorry I didn't know that I was being called. I was actually speaking to someone out in the hallway who was rather upset, and I just want to talk about a couple of things that this person was upset about because they're the same things I'm upset about. By all means, we need affordable housing here. I've come here now and spoken about this how many times? And I'm pretty effective because actors are pretty effective. But here's the thing. We need decent affordable housing here. And my concern with the overlay comes from a lot of different directions. I know that this was worked on very hard. I have respect for the people who worked on it, believe me, I absolutely do. I spent years being a housing advocate both in Cambridge and in Boston. I know how hard it is to put together affordable housing packages. However, we've got a problem here, and the problem is that there needs to be adjustments made to the affordable housing overlay. There definitely do, otherwise what's going to happen is that the same areas of the city that are already being whacked with mountains of affordable housing, like East Cambridge and Alewife and the back end of Central Square, are going to get whacked again because of upzoning. So that's one. The other thing is, I want to just talk a little more personally about this than I have before. Whoever you have built and developed this needs to be vetted. I live in affordable housing currently now. I invite any one of the city councilors or people working on this plan to come into my unit and see the decrepit shape of my unit, and my unit is owned by a nonprofit organization that has other affordable housing in this area. Part of the reason why I come here over and over and over again is I live in a building filled with people who are afraid all the time to even call housing inspectors. So if you want better affordable housing in this city, you have to vet the people developing it. You have to take a look at the properties they already own here. You have to take a very good look. That's all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I apologize, Trudy, I started with page 2. That's why I called you so soon. I'm going to go back to page 1. And on page 1 is Liz Zong, followed by Patrick Braga.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz Zhong, and I live on Sacramento Street in Cambridge. I grew up in the northwest part of China, a city called Xi'an. I came to the U.S. to study human development and psychology at School of Education at Harvard. Try to understand what protects children from the risks and trauma they experience in early life. Now I think back, what had protected me was my father's care when I experienced my parents' divorce when I was 7. My dad cooked my lunch, helped me with math, and he hand-washed my clothes. Another protective factor in my life was that I had my own space where I could do whatever I wanted to make it my home. I remember putting a chair on my bed and jumping from that chair to attach stickers on the ceiling. And in that room, I started my teaching career. I taught my friends English and forced them to do assignments. So with that space that I can call my own, I felt that I still had control in my life, despite the chaos and uncertainty. And I became best friend with another girl, Juan, who was raised by her single mom in middle school. She came to my house a few times before I was invited to hers. Her house was different. She lived in a single room with her mom in a building right next to the vegetable market. It was really hard for us to study at her house because the market closed late at night, and we had to put on the jackets and go out to use the shared bathroom in the winter. They didn't like their housing, but that was all they could afford. So when I think of housing, I think of her and potentially many children whose parents work really hard but still can't provide a comfortable home for their children who experience adversity. They are the reason why I support affordable housing in Cambridge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Patrick Braga, followed by Alex Bocon-Gibad.
Hi, my name's Patrick Braga, 11 Everett Street, registered voter in Cambridge and urban planning master's student at Harvard. I enthusiastically support the affordable housing overlay. There are 3 technical reasons why I see the overlay as smart land use policy. First, it allows existing buildings to be preserved and subdivided into affordable apartments by right. This is a great idea. I see no reason why single-unit houses should be the default in such an opportunity-rich city. Second, on parcels large enough, 4-story buildings, which already exist throughout Cambridge, would be allowed in most neighborhoods. In fact, I noticed that despite the overlay being such a physical policy, I hadn't seen anyone try to visualize it. So earlier today, I emailed you 2 pages exploring what hypothetical future build-out might look like. Simply put, the visual impact of the overlay will be absolutely benign because parcel sizes alongside acquisition and construction costs will naturally regulate how much eventually gets built. Third, by right approvals reduce financing gaps by reducing legal and architectural fees and reducing interest and purchase option payments incurred when approvals are delayed. This, in turn, can reduce individual projects' reliance on public funds so that our housing programs can have more impact with more projects. Finally, on a personal level, given my experience both as a proud immigrant to this country and as a young professional, I've lived in 1, 2, and 3-unit houses, townhouse, garden apartment, 6-unit building, live-work unit, studio, and dormitories. I've lived by myself with family both renting and owning and with unrelated individuals. And I strongly believe that all of these housing types and tenure types can coexist peacefully, which is why I support housing policies like the overlay. And incremental though it may be, the overlay will enable more housing for diverse needs, thus helping Cambridge live up to its core values of inclusion and opportunity for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Alex Bocon, Gibrad, Rahul Gupta, followed by Elena Culbertson.
Thank you. My name is Rahul Gupta. I live at 199 North Harvard Street, Allston. I'm an advanced leadership fellow at Harvard University. I'm deeply concerned about housing as a social issue. It's an issue of equity, fairness, justice, and diversity, which the city of Cambridge stands for. I grew up in Mumbai, where almost half the population struggles to put their foot on the housing ladder, largely due to poor government policies and unfulfilled election promises. Housing has particularly been challenging for me in Mumbai. I lived with my father in a government accommodation in the center of Mumbai. On his retirement, we were flung to the outskirts of the city, 40 miles away, with long commutes, 2 hours each way, in overcrowded trains. Now that I live in Cambridge, I see a similarity here with employees of Harvard and MIT having to commute long distances to work. Caesar, who serves me coffee at the dining hall in Spangler at Harvard Business School, is one such example with long hours of commute. This is clearly not fair, not equitable, does not promote diversity. I repeat, this is not what the city of Cambridge stands for. I support the affordable housing overlay. We need to create a level playing field. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Leave his comment.
If you'd like to leave your comment in the basket, we'll make sure they can become part of the record.
I thought I will email it to you. It's handwritten.
Very good.
I'll email it to you before midnight.
Thank you so much. Elena Culbertson, followed by Robert Master. I just want to remind people that the third floor is open for those that want to sit down.
My name is Elena Culbertson. I live at 471 Memorial Drive, and I'm with Students for Affordable Housing. I grew up in a predominantly low-income neighborhood in a town in Illinois. I loved where I lived, but there was also a lot of instability. Many of my classmates' parents struggled to find affordable housing and would move frequently as housing prices changed. This led to a high turnover in schools that made it hard for my teachers to teach effectively and hurt everyone's learning. Now, I work in an outreach program at MIT that teaches Cambridge students. I've seen firsthand how housing instability has had similar negative effects on these children. Across the board, uncertainty over housing affordability makes it hard for Cambridge residents to invest in their community, which hurts everyone in Cambridge. Our schools, businesses, and neighborhoods all suffer. I strongly support the affordable housing overlay as one step to help Cambridge residents stay in the community they love. I also support the overlay from an environmental perspective. The overlay promotes sustainability by allowing employees at places including MIT and Harvard to live near their jobs, lessening high carbon footprint commutes. While seeing our neighborhoods change can be scary, the overlay allows neighborhoods to change in a way that makes our community better. For those reasons, I urge Quentin and everyone else to support the overlay.
Thank you for your testimony. Robert Master, followed by Christian Rios.
Thank you. My name is Robert Master. I live at 8 Brewer Street, apartment 6, here in Cambridge. First of all, I want to be clear where I'm coming from. I strongly support any and all workable efforts to greatly expand affordable housing options. I moved here 6 years ago because I value economic, racial, and ethnic diversity that enriches us all. And I really resonated with the examples of people working here should be able to live here. My concern is this, and it's as of right. It seems to have very real potential to be a denial of rights on an unprecedented scale. And I think it is critically important that we understand the implications of what that means, and I don't believe we yet do. So that, I think, is the unfinished work of the deliberations. Secondly, I believe there may be many other ways not yet fully explored to create meaningful subsidies to promote home ownerships. These include increases in property taxes. We're blessed because we have among the lower property taxes in the region. It could mean the imposition of a transfer tax on upscale 7-figure home purchases. It could mean vacancy surcharges and others, or any combination of this. All of these require thoughtful policy, economic, and legal analysis. Thank you.
Christian Rios, followed by Elon Levy.
Hello, my name is Christian Rios. I live at 3 Ames Street. I'm a student at MIT, and I'm a Students for Affordable Housing. My connection to housing here is that, or in general, is that I grew up in public housing in rural Florida, and to us it was a privilege. Like others lived in things we could barely call housing, and it was stability. With parents who were farm workers, I lived in cars. I lived in trailers with roofs falling in. I lived in employer-built housing, and I would wish that on no one else. Here, I intern at the Harvard Law Legal Services Center with the Housing Clinic. Each Tuesday, including this morning, I go to the Boston Housing Court, and I pull 60, 70 files of people who are being kicked out of their homes within 1 week and 3 days of those files being entered. 90+% of those are for non-payment of rent. I'm working with the first project to look at the files from the different housing courts around Boston. And although we are not finished yet, the data shows something clear, that entire areas of the greater Boston area are being evicted one by one for non-payment of rent. And I want to ensure that these people have somewhere to go and that they can share in our vision that everyone should have a place to live and they should be able to come home in Cambridge. And that is why I support the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Elon Levy.
Good evening. Ilan Levy, 148 Spring Street. So my main concern with the overlay, what I think is a little bit of a problem, is the fact that it's 100% affordable when the latest studies and what we have learned is that diversity in housing is the same and brings better outcome than when we actually stack all the people, all certain social incomes together. We also know from experience, because that's what we've done in the past, affordable housing. We've like kind of built that box that talks only about the actual ability to have housing. We haven't talked about equity. We haven't talked about a good distribution of how we are going to, of the food, of the services that are going to be able to enable the people who are going to be in this affordable housing to live there. I have a real problem with this idea of 100% affordable, and many other ideas could come out of this discussion. Unfortunately, we seem to be focused on just the fact that if we don't do this as it was written, it will not pass. I think that we have to be open-minded and consider other options that have not been talked about at all. And this example of doing a third would be an opportunity to develop housing that would be different and financially more sustainable, as it would allow for a certain amount of market rate. That's all basically I have here. Is I don't think that we are discussing enough of the options that we have in front of us. And I'm glad to see that we have so many urban planning students from MIT who are here. And I wish we could engage them in finding better and more creative solution than just like kind of the fact that we are supporting the overlay. I think that everybody in this room supports affordable housing, wants affordable housing to happen, and we are not fighting each other. We are fighting for a better solution.
Edward Guthrie, followed by Carol OHare and Alicia Weng.
Hello, my name is Edward Guthrie, 471 Memorial Drive, and I'm here with Students for Affordable Housing. I'm a student, an undergraduate, a freshman. I've lived and studied in Cambridge for only about 7 or 8 months as of now, but I can say with confidence I've benefited from so much of what the city has had to offer, compared to other places I've lived. Not only in terms of education, but obviously in transportation, education, and social life. And I have gotten the opportunity to live in a number of places growing up. My family has moved a handful of times, and I've stayed in multiple parts of Baltimore County in Maryland and the Dallas Metroplex in Texas, primarily due to the challenges we've had trying to find good, affordable housing in the past. However, for my future, I'm worried about the possible challenge of staying in Cambridge with exclusively high rents, in a future where I become not just a resident, but a worker and tenant in this city. I'm going to need a price that works for me. And not just for me, but for all residents. As a new but conscientious member of this community, I'm aware there's a tendency for rents and other prices to approach what's just affordable to young professionals, but not for other working individuals or families. As a city and as a community, we must commit ourselves to supplying affordable housing. The overlay is a strong step towards just that. Cambridge has committed to the values of efficiency and deliberation, which means that we must commit ourselves to going up instead of, in addition to going out, and to making use of this space in order to supply affordable housing. And we need to have a reasonable zoning system to do so. And Cambridge has stated its commitment to values of equity and diversity, and in practice, this means a commitment at least to supplying the affordable housing proposed by the 100% affordable housing overlay. Councilor Quinton, we understand and share the values of the city and will work to hold you to them. Thank you.
Thank you. As we give our public comment, I'm going to ask people to hold back and resist the tendency to call the counselors, as opposed to individually say, counselor. We try not to deal with personalities or names. We're all equal here. So I would just ask, I know it's not about being rude, but just if we would dispense with calling particular counselors by their names, whether if they're for or against them. Okay? Thanks so much.
Remind him to take out so no one's leaving anything in the basket.
And please leave your comments. The deputy clerk will not let me leave if you don't leave your comments in the basket. So, Ms. OHare, followed by Alicia Weng, followed by Vikram Sreenivas. Ms. Hare. OHare.
Carol OHare, 172 Magazine Street. Don't rush the rezoning through without the information, analysis, and careful discussion requested by the Council's own unanimous April 1 policy order. 2, I will wager that even those who are expressing concerns about the affordable housing overlay are compassionate and big-hearted. We just have concerns. City administrators and boards limit low and middle income housing shortages, could limit low and middle income housing shortages by reining in discretionary zoning approvals like Matimco at Volpe, Cambridge Side Galleria, and Leggett McCall's Courthouse enabled by discretionary LDA garage. Those are all discretionary zoning approvals. They produce employees that outspend our current and former Cambridge residents. What about limiting those? What's the likelihood that affordable housing overlay will actually produce, not just allow, affordable housing in less densely developed Cambridge neighborhoods? Could more of the same quality apartments be produced otherwise at the same cost and more quickly? If so, what are the alternatives? What, if anything, will incentivize affordable housing developers to preserve and improve existing structures rather than scraping lots and building new? Why allow as of right 80-foot high affordable housing buildings with minimal actual open space and timid setbacks to abut zones permitting maximum 35-foot high residential
If you would
buildings?
leave them in the basket, that'd be very nice. Thank you so much. Alicia Weng, followed by Vikram Sreenivas, followed by Nicholas Brown.
Hi, my name is Alicia Weng. I live at 100 Memorial Drive, and I am with Students for Affordable Housing. There's a janitor at MIT who named Oscar, who I've seen around a lot in the past few years. He used to live in Cambridge, was evicted 15 years ago when he could no longer afford to pay rent, and now lives in Dorchester but still commutes to MIT every night to work as a janitor from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's close to an hour-long commute back home for him, which is awful to make after working throughout the entire night. But losing his home in Cambridge was more than just losing the convenience of living closer to where he works. It's more than being told he's not wanted or valued in a place where he works so hard. It's also losing an entire community and way of life. We care about Cambridge being a vibrant, diverse, and welcoming place to live in, but how can it be when only certain kinds of people can actually live here and contribute to life on these streets? I get that we care about preserving the character and beauty of our neighborhoods. I love Cambridge, and I care a lot about that too. But this overlay is just a tiny change. The new developments are still going to be subject to very high standards. And at the end of the day, housing is a basic human right. People need shelter, they need security and stability in where they live. They need a community that they know won't just disappear on them the next week. And they need a place they can rely on to raise their kids in a healthy environment. And that is why I support the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vikram Sreenivas, I'm sorry if I said your name incorrectly, followed by Nicholas Brown and then Suzanne Bellier.
Hi, my name is Vikram Sreenivas, so that is pretty good, actually.
Thank you.
I live in 20 Armington Street in Alston, and I'm with Students for Affordable Housing. My wife and I moved to Cambridge 2 years ago, me as a graduate student immigrating from India to Harvard, and my wife is way smarter than I am, so she has a PhD. So she was a postdoc here. I spent about a month and a half looking for something which fit our budget, which was my wife's $50,000 salary, and I couldn't find anything in Cambridge. We ended up sharing a unit in Beacon Street on the Cambridge-Somerville line with another friend of ours as a newly married couple. So at the end of the year, our landlord wanted to hike the rent by $300. Our friend wanted to move out, and we thought as a newly married couple, it would be kind of nice if we had a space for ourselves. This time I spent 2.5 months looking because I knew the market was tight, and we could only find a place in Alston. And both last year and this year, we're spending just about half our income in rent. Now, we'd love to live in Cambridge, I hear a lot from folks here and generally about how the city is friendly to immigrants, wants to attract young people and families to live here. The truth is that as things stand, me and my wife will never be able to live here by ourselves, let alone raise a family here. And I know I'm not alone in this. Neither will most of my friends graduating this year. So these are all folks who will never, not even considering living or raising their families in Cambridge. Now, this story is familiar. Some counselors are immigrants. You know, they've come here to study at Harvard or MIT. Some people have met their partners here, and some people are now on the city council. So all I'm asking for, there are many experts in the details of the policy, but all I'm asking for is help me and my wife to have the same opportunities you did. And that's why I support the affordable housing overlay. Thank you.
Thank you. Please leave your remarks. Nicholas Brown, followed by Suzanne Blier, followed by Marilyn Myers.
Hi, my name's Nicholas Brown, and I'm a first year at Harvard College, originally from Brookline, Massachusetts. I'm here to tell you a story about affordable housing, intergenerational connections, and groceries, but most especially about one of my best friends, Rosalind. Rosalind is 63 years old. In 2005, she applied for affordable housing in Brookline. After 8 years on a waiting list, her application was processed, and she now has been living in affordable housing for the last 6 years in Brookline. Over the last 5 years, Rosalind and I have made an unlikely friendship through groceries. When I was a freshman at Brookline High School, I joined the Shop Club, Students Helping Older People, a club that pairs student grocery shoppers with older people in the community, many of whom, like Rosalind, have a hard time procuring groceries. Along with two of my friends, we were paired with Rosalind, volunteering to go grocery shopping for her. Every week for 4 years, snow and shine, we would get her groceries. We didn't do it for college or recognition, but because we cared about her. She was one of our best friends. Rosalind's taught me the importance of relationships with people unlike yourself. She taught me personally about the struggle many Americans go through to stretch their budget each week, even with the help of affordable housing. I also learned from her the joys of growing older and the complications that come with it, things that I wasn't certainly taught at Brookline High School. Knowing people unlike yourself is crucial to maintaining the social cohesion of this country. Yet without institutional mechanisms such as affordable housing laws, people from differing backgrounds will not be spatially and thus socially connected. Without affordable housing, I would have never have met Rosalind, a mentor and friend who I cherish deeply. I may have graduated from a great public high school, but without having befriended Rosalind, I would not consider myself truly educated. Without affordable housing, not only would I be ignorant of the experience of people from backgrounds unlike myself, I would also lack something even more important, my good friend Rosalind.
Thank you so much. Suzanne Blier, followed by Marilyn Myers, after which we'll have Andrea Wilder.
Thank you. Suzanne Blier, 5 Fuller Place. And I am deeply committed to affordable housing, equity, and sustainability. And I've recently begun looking at the statistical data on demographics for the city and housing that CDD has recently put up. And one of the things that's very clear to me is that this data indicates that we are in the middle of a deeply problematic market-based situation of gentrification, with more and more houses being turned over to wealthier individuals, and in large, hence we're losing a key part of the housing stock. African Americans are particularly being hard hit if we go back to the data from 1980 to the present. Places such as the Port have lost 10.3%, Riverside 7.7%, and until we begin to deal with this critical demographic and gentrification data, we are no better off. To my friends, colleagues, and students at MIT, Harvard, and elsewhere, I would say that these are things that our universities need to address. We need to provide housing for staff, for students, and let me add Leslie as well, which has an incoming class of about 8,000. In MIT specifically, dwelling units have decreased over the last decade or so. We need also to look at the city's larger issue of 10.8% vacancy rates. What is causing this, and how do we begin to address it? Design is of critical importance. I have real concerns about the proposed transition from FAR to as of right. We need thoughtful planning, and we need the actual design criteria in place before anything is voted on. We need also great concerns. We have great concerns on eviction and rate stabilization. And I would simply say that few of those here even who are interested in or even wanting to have affordable housing will be able to in the current affordable housing overlay. The point is 56,000.
So much for your
Many of those are
testimony.
too high
Our
or
next
too low
speaker
for
is
this.
Marilyn
Thank you.
Myers, followed by Andrea Wilder, and then Trudy. We'll refer from Trudy, Kevin Lee.
Gee,
Ms.
not
Meyer.
even a finish of a sentence.
Well, we want to keep it to 2 minutes and be fair.
Okay, I'm Marilyn Myers, 10 Dana Street, and I really appreciate all these personal stories, and I agree with a lot of the issues. But much of the public still doesn't understand the overlay and how it affects existing zoning practices and what it can deliver. Have you done a 3D model on the new numbers for density, how those are crunched out and see them in 3D? The form-based code ignores the national review calling for a study of each individual neighborhood and its needs. And I think in this case, CDD is a little bit lazy and dismisses vital pieces of a total concept of this idea of the form-based code. This plan does not provide any incentives to make housing any more affordable. Where are the POs waiting reports for data on evictions and displacements, city-owned land, identified potential buildings, who is buying property, a potential possible transfer tax, pathway to ownership? And we have yet to see the Envision report. We are pushing a one-size-fits-all without all the facts. Many old houses are not engineered to carry extra floors, so if not historically significant, they get torn down. Developers do not have to adopt design suggestions as of right. And examples shown are apples and oranges. And not a good comparison. We need to amend the planning board permitting. We need to keep FAR. We need to need more mixed income housing, which would address social and racial equality.
Ms. Meyer, thank you so much. And if your testimony is in print, if you would leave it in the basket or email it to us. Andrea Wilder, followed by Kevin Lee.
Andrea Wilder, 12 Arlington Street. I'm going to discuss trees. The Cambridge Tree Committee and the overlay represent the work of two different constituencies. Why not integrate them? My first point, we all know Brattle Street, big houses, lots of trees. We also know other parts of the city with smaller houses and not so many trees. I conclude that if you have money, you get trees. If you don't have money, you don't get trees. My second point, trees can be a social good for all. They improve health, they calm the spirit, they're often beautiful, especially now in spring bloom. Why are they given more generously to some and less to others? In conclusions, I want to suggest that the concerns of the Tree Committee be merged with the overlay plan. Trees should be a social good for all of us, not just some. Houses and trees should be integrated, and the overlay should be designed with both of them together. In the overlay plans, I see apartment-like blocks with greenery at the edges. I remember a while back when greenery in Cambridge meant only green turf between street and sidewalk. I don't mean that at all. I mean real trees integrated with housing from the beginning, not as add-ons. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Kevin Lee, followed by Walter McDonald, after which Sasha Rickard.
Hello, my name is Kevin Lee, and I live at 3 Ames Street, which is an MIT undergraduate dormitory near Kendall Square. I am a student at MIT's Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and I speak here today in support of the proposed affordable housing overlay. I've been proud to call Cambridge my home for the past 4 years. I'm proud to live in a thriving and diverse place in which I can walk and take transit where I need to go. However, while I've had the privilege of accessing my university's subsidized dormitory housing, I have met many others in the MIT community who work in Cambridge who do not have this privilege. They commute here from faraway places like Burlington, Billerica, and even Nashua to access the opportunities that this incredible place affords. These people are not represented here today because they cannot afford to live here. Their commutes waste their time, stress them out, and hurt the environment, all because we cannot be bothered to allow more people to live in our community. But they contribute to the liveliness in our city, and I believe that they deserve a place to live here. The proposed overlay is not a big step, but nevertheless a step in the correct direction. I know there might be a counselor who enjoys broad support among the MIT community because of their vocal commitment to climate change policy. Housing policy and climate policy are intricately tied, and the most significant step we can take as Cambridge is to allow more Cambridge workers to live here. This is why I urge this counselor to support the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Walter McDonald, followed by Sasha Rickard, after Noam Tanner.
My name is Walter McDonald. I live at 172 Magazine Street. If we really wanted to spend our time developing affordable housing soon, today we should be talking about capturing the East Cambridge Courthouse, both for moderate and affordable housing. If it comes your way, please support that. Our problem today is that we don't have the comprehensive plan from the Envision process. I've heard it's almost ready, but before going further, we need to know what other problems and issues have been identified by that process that bear on housing. What about transit, cost and availability of retail space, open space, climate change, and overall resilience? We need to all know about all these issues to make a reasonable decision about housing development of all kinds. We are lucky to have the work of Steve Kaiser, who has made a detailed and exhaustive survey of the numerous necessary corrections, additions, and unanswered questions raised by the proposed draft 100% affordable housing overlay. You should pay close attention to it. And I noticed it's included in the photocopied material that was handed out. But we are not ready to move forward on this proposal. No alternative plans have been considered. What about Charles Franklin's proposal requiring affordable housing to fit into different neighborhoods in 8 zones? We have no examples of similar overlay rezoning initiatives from Cambridge, Boston, or beyond to give us confidence in the efficacy of this proposal. We have no reports of cities that have implemented form-based zoning. There's been no financial analysis comparing the cost of construction versus the ongoing necessary rent subsidy to meet the need for low and moderate income housing. We have no analysis of how soon this overlay will attract proposals once enacted and where it's likely to produce new housing.
Ms. McDonald,
The rest
thank
of
you
them
for your
are in what I sent
testimony.
you already.
Sasha Rickard, followed by Noam Tanner, after Esther Hennig.
Hello. My name is Sasha Rickard. I live at 14 Lawrence Street near Central Square, and I'm here with Students for Affordable Housing supporting the proposed affordable housing overlay. I want to say that I love Cambridge. I love all the old homes. I love how active people are. I love the little coffee shops and the bookstores. I also love being able to live near all this vibrancy without working a job that pays 6 figures. I may be an MIT student, but I don't work in tech. I can only afford to live in Cambridge because I live in a multifamily unit with roommates. I want to be a teacher, and I would love to be able to live in Cambridge or a city like it on the salary of a public school teacher. This overlay is a small step in that direction. It doesn't all of a sudden convert all the housing stock to affordable units, and it won't mean that a single-story neighborhood changes overnight into 7-story apartment complexes. But what it does mean is that affordable units can be built throughout the city with a higher return on taxpayer investment for those units. It means that some low-income individuals and families will get to have access to the richness and diversity of Cambridge, and is simply a sensible and frankly quite modest addition to Cambridge's existing affordable housing program. For these reasons, I support the overlay and urge the members of the council, as well as other Cambridge residents, to support it as a way to better fulfill Cambridge's commitment to helping keep and support all members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Noam Tanner, after which Esther Hennig, and then Patrick Baird. Noam Tanner.
Thank you. My name is Noam Tanner. I live at 47 Sacramento, and I support the overlay. I support the overlay because it addresses numerous pressing issues right now, and that's why we should hurry to get it through. And the opposition has me perplexed for a few reasons. I've seen multiple city councilors stand in support of the striking workers at Stop and Shop. I think that in addition to supporting them at the picket line, we should also be supporting them when they return home. I've seen city councilors support small independent businesses. Next time you're at, for example, the Harvard bookstore, ask the employees, and can you afford to live in Cambridge? I did, and the answer I got was a resounding no. As mentioned by Sasha just earlier, many teachers have to have long commutes to come to Cambridge. Why not support them with housing? And the final pressing concern is many immigrants face much persecution throughout the United States. Why not welcome them through affordable housing into Cambridge? These are immediate, once again, these are immediate solutions, and we can't wait. But to me, the most perplexing argument against the affordable housing overlay is neighborhood character. When I think of a single mother who works in a cash register, of an immigrant seeking a better life in Cambridge, of a teacher using her own money to support an underprivileged student, of the aspiring writer, I think, wow, this is the very character, the very neighborhood, the real neighborhood character we should be including in Cambridge, and I think we should hurry up to address these issues by supporting the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Esther Hennig, followed by Patrick Barrett, followed by Ted Pine.
My name's Esther Hennig, and I live at 136 Pine Street in the Port. I'm here to urge the committee and the council to move speedily on the filing and passage of the Affordable Housing Overlay District. That Affordable Housing Overlay District would be a major step in addressing the pressing crisis that we're facing in maintaining the very special character of diversity and equity in our city. And this is indeed a crisis. Every day that we delay, we are forfeiting opportunities to build more affordable units and to expand our diversity to Cambridge neighborhoods that are currently sorely lacking economic and racial diversity. I was so heartened in the last few years to hear so many people talking about how important affordable housing it is, saying this was the most important thing we need to tackle. I have heard the same people talk about the importance of working to maintain as much diversity as possible. And yet many of these same people are only raising objections rather than embracing this exciting opportunity. They talk about our trees, and yet we just passed with great speed a measure to protect our trees. They talk about our buildings, and yet we have our historical commission to protect our buildings. We hear about the need for neighborhood input and design review, and yet that is included in this proposal. We are also fortunate to have affordable developers in Cambridge who have a strong track record of working closely with neighbors and producing attractive buildings that fit into the existing neighborhood. I have heard that the proposal will not produce any additional affordable housing, or that it will produce as much as will totally change existing neighborhoods. And neither of these assertions is true. And while I would not argue that this proposal is perfect, we have the entire legislative process after the proposal is filed to work together to make any necessary improvements. This is the moment to seize this unique and pressing opportunity to be a city of inclusion and equity.
Patrick Barrett, followed by Ted Pine, and then Zoey Hopkins. Patrick Barrett.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Baird, 41 Pleasant Street. I feel like I'm in a weird position because I'm not for the affordable housing lane. I'm not really against it. I think the interesting thing about it, whether you're for or against, we really had nothing to discuss until a few weeks ago when zoning actually appeared and we had something to sort of sink our teeth into. I think it's interesting that in the zoning, a lot has been identified as problematic citywide. Appeal process is a little bit arduous. Form zoning is kind of interesting, but it requires robust design guidelines, really, which are not part of this package. Things like setbacks, dimensional requirements, these are all things that everyone deals with in Cambridge. And while as an attorney and as someone who occasionally builds something, it's a real pain to have to go to the planning board and have to go through the process. It's a real pain to have that 21-day period where I have to wait for someone to appeal a project. But that's democracy. I don't see why I don't think we should take that away from our residents. On the other side, Cambridge could build housing. We have lots and lots of land in Cambridge. There just happens to be things on it. Central Square, we tried doing that a couple of years ago and we lost out. But I see a C2B zone in this zoning package that says it should be 80 feet, which again, no one's ever going to build that height because building code requirements would be exorbitant cost-wise. But in Central Square, we're also 80 feet. Actually, we're 55 by right. Why does that make sense? This is a time to get it right. Keep it in committee, work on it, make it do something that it's supposed to do, but also don't forget the people who live here and the residents. And if this is so great for affordable housing, there's probably lots of good things in there for everyone else too. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ted Pivey or Pine, followed by Zoey Hopkins, then Burton Azim.
Hello, my name is Ted. I live on Duell Street, and I'm a student at Harvard studying mathematics. I grew up in a town that used high housing prices to keep lower income people out of its public school system. At public meetings for 40B projects, I watched lines of people go up to the mic and say, I support affordable housing, but. In Cambridge, I've seen the real harm high housing prices do, from administrative staff forced to move far away and endure long commutes, to brilliant potential graduate students who visibly wince when told about the price of housing. And these are people who are frequently considering Berkeley, a place not known for being very affordable. Both from the standpoint of equity and to maintain a vibrant economy, it is critically important for Cambridge to lower the cost of housing. While this overlay will not achieve housing for all by itself, it is the least we can do as a city, and failing to pass it would indicate a lack of commitment to affordable housing by the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Zoey Hopkins, followed by Burton Azim, followed by David Sullivan.
Councilors, my name is Zoey Hopkins. I'm here on behalf of the Harvard Student Labor Action Movement, or SLAM. SLAM seeks to engender solidarity between Harvard's workers and students and to organize students in efforts centered on economic justice and labor reform. I'm here to provide testimony in support of many workers at Harvard who could draw immense benefit from the affordable housing overlay. A friend of mine, who is a Harvard dining worker, commutes to campus every day from New Hampshire. She leaves her home at 5:30 a.m. before her kids wake up and get to school, and arrives back at 9:30 p.m. after they've gone to sleep. Not only is she unable to spend time watching her kids grow up, but she also has to spend 10% of her budget on gas. This is the lived experience of an overwhelming number of Harvard workers. Every day, they make commutes as long as 3, even 4 hours, many of them from out of state, to get to work because they cannot afford to live in Cambridge, a wealthy suburb that also houses one of the wealthiest universities in the world. By the time they arrive at work, they are tired, having woken up at the crack of dawn to serve the Harvard community, and more broadly, the Cambridge community. These staff do more than just work at Harvard. They are a family and the lifeblood of the Harvard community. But how can Cambridge call itself a community when many people who have dutifully served it are denied the ability to live here because it isn't financially viable for them? The claim that it is legitimate to oppose this overlay because it will make neighborhoods less desirable or less attractive is not only a farce, but it is also an offensive and anti-poor affront to those who work tirelessly to support this community. At the end of the day, passing this affordable housing overlay is a small drop in the bucket compared to the vast benefit that Harvard workers and others who rely on affordable housing would experience in its wake. For those workers and others, passing this overlay would affirm that Cambridge is more than a workplace, but that it is a community and a place they can rely on to call their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Burton Azim, followed by David Sullivan after Ellen Schechter.
Hello, my name is Burhan Azim, 471 Memorial Drive. I was born in Pakistan, in a small town called Multan. It was a poor city in an unstable country. When I was 2 years old, my little sister was born, but she was born premature, and there were no public hospitals around. So we took a private one, and day by day, we got thousands and thousands of dollars of bills paid off. We realized that this was more than our family would make in our entire lives there. So then we got the opportunity to leave our homes and come to the US. And here, my dad worked 7 to 7 every day, 7 days a week at a deli. My mom did the same at Dunkin' Donuts every day. I barely got to see them as a child. And yet we were still not able to afford a home for years. We were unable to afford an apartment to ourselves. There was a family of 7 that could barely fit in their 2-bedroom, and they took us in. And then we were 12 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. It broke every zoning law in the zoning code in the book. We were so afraid that I would hide in the closet when the landowner came or the inspectors came by. We were so scared of being caught being in that building that I skipped pre-K and I skipped kindergarten. That is real fear. And so when I saw this affordable housing overlay come into play, and that we could build homes for people, and then people come out saying, oh, it'll affect our character, I would say, are these excuses? Do you understand what homes mean to people? And then when someone else comes up to me and says that this is too complex, that this is too fast, I would say, is this too fast for other policies that you care about, whether it's trees or a carbon tax? I'm really disappointed in you, Quentin. Let's pass this overlay.
I'm going to ask again that we do not name councilors by their names. We want to keep decorum in the room. I know it's very passionate. If we just say, just have our speaking a little bit more benign. No out front calling by names. I appreciate it so much. David Sullivan, followed by Ellen Schachter, followed by Sanibel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is David Sullivan, 16 Notre Dame Avenue, North Cambridge. I want to begin by thanking all of you again for your patience in listening to this testimony, including myself. I don't see how anyone can complain that there hasn't been adequate process about the consideration of this proposal. I'd also like to, through you, Madam Chair, thank the inspiring testimony of the students who are here today. I came to Cambridge. I wasn't born here. It was my adopted home. I came here as an MIT student almost 50 years ago. At the time, I was told, you really can't register to vote. You're just a student here. I'd like to say that it has been a wonderful home for me and my family, and I hope that the students who are here tonight will have a similar experience. I'd just like to respond to one point that I've heard a couple of times, and actually it's 2 conflicting points, from my friends, and many of them are my friends, who are critical of the proposal. The arguments are, first, that this will not actually produce any significant amount of affordable housing, and second, that it will destroy our neighborhoods. Now, both of those statements cannot be true. Either there will be significant changes in our neighborhoods because there have been lots of affordable housing units built, or there won't be any affordable housing units built and there won't be any changes in our neighborhoods. So both things can't be true. I'd suggest that the truth, as often is the case, lies somewhere in the middle. There will be, by the estimate of our Community Development Department, something like 100 units a year built. They will not destroy our neighborhoods. They're going to be built by responsible, affordable housing developers who have a terrific track record, and they will be beautiful developments, and they will be a credit to our city. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Ellen Schachter, followed by Sanibel, followed by Jamie Kwako.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ellen Schachter. I live at 346 Concord Avenue, and I've lived in Cambridge since 1984. Some of you know that I spent the last almost 3 decades working with people facing imminent displacement from this city, largely because of increasing and spiraling rent prices and homeowner prices. I've spent almost those 3 decades trying to think about how we increase affordable housing and how we try to keep people in our city who have grown up here and want to remain. I would say one thing. To me, this is not a question of affordable housing overlay versus other strategies. We need multiple strategies to fight forward on this affordable housing front. The affordable housing overlay, in combination with significantly increased municipal funding, are an absolutely critical piece of a really important puzzle. That puzzle also means we need to strengthen tenants' rights. That puzzle also means we need to be looking at a transfer fee. But I'm very happy to hear other people with testimony saying, great, there's all these other ideas around how to make affordable housing. And I say, thank God, bless them. I'm really glad we're all in this together. I was on the Envision Housing Task Force and spent almost a year going to meetings with a lot of people that have thought for a long time about how we increase affordable housing. There were developers, there were people like myself, there were housing advocates, there were residents, a wide variety of people. And you know, we spent a lot of time thinking about tools. The affordable housing overlay is not the only tool that is before you that we put forward in the Envision process. But again, all of those minds over all of that time, and a public comment was allowed at every meeting during that Envision process. At the end of this process, when we're now here where we are, it's really imperative that we act quickly. Every single week that passes is another family that will be displaced that could. I will stop.
Thank you so
very
much for your testimony. Sanibel, followed by Jamie Koiko.
Hi, all. So my name is actually Suri. I'm the daughter of Sanibel, who's sitting right
Suri.
over there. Hi there. So I was born and raised in Cambridge. I went through the public school system here. I'm on scholarship right now studying urban planning at Harvard. And I'm in support of this overlay. I'm really excited about it. I look around the room and I'm excited to see young folks here. I wonder how many people after this meeting are going to go home, like have a home to go to. And while I was walking over here, I spoke with one of my friends I've known for about 9 years, has been in and out of shelters in Cambridge, and couldn't make it here because they have their things with them. They don't want to separate themselves from their items because they don't have a home to put it in. And they wanted me to just say that this overlay is a really exciting opportunity and that they are a person that just wants to survive here in Cambridge. And they also really love the historic aspect of Cambridge. They also really love open space, but I think all these things can coexist. And I also want to say I'm studying affordable housing, and during my midterm, I received a notice about being evicted. I'm on a monthly plan, and I have a lot of housing instability as well as the cost of school, the cost of living, and I love Cambridge. I have benefited so much, and I believe that I bring so much to the table for Cambridge as well. And I want to continue being here. So I think this overlay is a way to not only support students who are coming from other areas who want to stay in Cambridge, but folks who grew up here, who love this area, who are artists in this space, who are experiencing a lot of housing instability at the moment, and who I wish could be here now, but are actually working jobs and are waitressing or are experiencing homelessness and can't be here to have their voices heard, but they're out there and they're speaking. And I'm so excited for this to be a place where we make sure that those voices are heard and these voices have a home here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Jamie Koiko, followed by Mary Jo Clark, and then Amanda Powers.
Hi, I'm Jamie Siako.
I apologize.
No problem. I've lived in or very close to Cambridge for the last 29 years. I've been a homeowner in Cambridge for the past 9 years, and I support the affordable housing overlay. I wanted to make a couple very small points. One, that a lot of longtime residents of Cambridge have lamented what's happened to places like Harvard Square and how a lot of independent shops have gone away and been replaced by banks and chain stores. And so I wanted to make sure people connected that in their minds to the loss of affordable housing in Cambridge. And then secondly, I know there are a lot of people who are concerned about the parking issue, and I just wanted to make sure they thought about the fact that a lot of people who currently drive into the city would be able to get housing within the city, and so they would, for many of those people, they would be one fewer car on the road rather than one more car. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sioko. Mary Jo Clark, followed by Amanda Powers, after which Jessica Drew.
Hi, my name is Mary Jo Clark, and I have rented at 32 Crescent Street in Cambridge for 32 years. I have been a Cambridge resident for 40 plus years, and I'm a crier, excuse me, and a family daycare provider in the city for 30. I'm speaking in support of the affordable housing overlay. Last year, my landlady informed me that she wanted to gut renovate and sell my place at market rate, and that I needed to leave by this June. Even with help from the Homebridge program and friends and supporters, I was not able to find a place to live and do daycare in a timely enough fashion, so I will be moving in June. I know of 3 other daycare providers who have also had to leave for similar reasons. I believe that the city can work with all neighborhoods to provide affordable housing sensitive to the settings in which they will be built. I also ask that the city be sensitive to the families and people who have lived and made Cambridge their home and can no longer afford to live here. And to the daycare, and to the daycare providers who have served your children and who desire to continue to do so in the city that they love.
Thank you. Amanda Powers, followed by Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew.
I'm a resident of Cambridge, living actually in an inclusionary zoning unit, and I'm a staff attorney at Cambridge and Somerville Legal Services. Primarily, I serve low-income tenants in the city of Cambridge and have an intimate knowledge of just how important affordable housing is, not only to the clients that I serve, but to the Cambridge residents who desire to continue residing here. As Ellen Schechter had so eloquently put it when she discussed the importance of this proposal, thoughtful, intelligent minds have debated this proposal. It has been before public comment and has had numbers of years to be developed over time, and moving forward is absolutely critical. Recently, the Cambridge Housing Authority came out with its proposed annual report. The Cambridge Housing Authority addressed that as of December 31st, 2018, 26,201 applicants are currently on the wait list for public housing, vouchers, elderly housing, and single-room occupancy. These are individuals who will wait years to get into housing, and some of those individuals will be able to get a voucher at the end of that process, and then will have to return that voucher to the Housing Authority because they will not be able to find affordable housing in Cambridge in which to use that voucher. The payment standards of the Cambridge Housing Authority are not meeting current market rent. And for this reason, many voucher holders have to return the vouchers that they get from the Cambridge Housing Authority, not because of any sort of termination, but simply because they cannot find a place to live. The time to act is now. It should have been proposed years ago. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We have the time and the resources to do it now. This is just one proposal that should be addressed in a myriad of proposals to increase affordable housing in the city. Too many families are homeless and are facing homelessness because of the lack of affordable housing. We need to address this crisis. It's real. It's here, and it's not going away.
Thank you for your testimony. Sue Schlesinger, followed by Lenny Solomon, who, if he wants to, he or she would like to speak, it says we'll hand in statement. So if you do not want to speak, you can we'll pass over you. Followed by Elizabeth Grombosi. Susan Schlesinger.
I'm Susan Schlesinger. I live at 34 Glenwood Ave in Cambridgeport. I'm here to urge the Housing Subcommittee to vote affirmatively on the affordable housing overlay and pass it along to the Ordinance Committee. We've all enjoyed the many nights here together discussing this ordinance, but I think it's time that it takes the next steps. I know the Ordinance Committee will be a very useful and thoughtful place to look at some of the issues that people have raised tonight. I, for one, feel like I understand the as of right aspect of this ordinance is troublesome to people, but it's not something that came out of nowhere. The reason why we believe that the as of right portion of this ordinance is important is because one way that affordable housing does not happen in this city quickly and does not happen as cheaply as it could is because we face affordable housing developers face litigation that grows out of the way our zoning is right now. And we really want to see a way of not having discretionary permits so affordable housing developers can move forward. I want to remind you that this is 100% affordable housing. This is not rapacious for-profit developers. Our affordable housing overlay calls for actually 2 layers of affordability. 80% of the units have to be at or below 80% of median income, but then there's a tier, which I do believe some of our students and their first and second jobs may be able to access, of between 80 and 100%. That's the section we're missing in Cambridge now.
Would Lenny Sullivan like to speak, or just pass in their paperwork? Okay. Elizabeth Grombosi, followed by Fritz Donovan, after which we'll hear from Fred Meyer.
My name is Elizabeth Gombashi, and I live at 42 Irving Street. Why have we not seen the Envision report? How can we be talking about implementing one part of it without having even seen the other components? We cannot do housing in a vacuum. Open space, transportation, and please acknowledge that for some there is a need for cars. Schools, groceries, libraries, all infrastructure must be considered in any plan for housing. Why are we now talking about the affordable housing overlay? What happened to the 100%? Are we surreptitiously moving towards 75% affordable housing overlay, then 50% affordable housing overlay, then... I am deeply disturbed by the divisiveness, lack of respect for other opinions, misinformation, and personal attacks this proposal has generated. This is so un-Cambridge, and it must stop. If we are to try to come up with solutions to a problem everyone agrees on, let's work together and let's look at other options, many of which would accomplish far more and be more cost-effective without taking away citizens' rights.
Thank you. Fritz Donovan, followed by Fred Meyer, and then Stephen Kaiser.
Fritz Donovan, 42 Irving Street. There has been too much disagreement on the proposed 100% affordable housing overlay we are here to discuss tonight. So let's focus on 2 facts that anyone who has studied it closely can agree on. First, we all support affordable housing. Second, this well-intended proposal is, unfortunately, a mess. The $3 million 3-year Envision plan was to consider 6 competing objectives in separate, focused subcommittees, then pull them together by the end of 2018 into a balanced plan that serves each of the 6 objectives acceptably without defeating any of the others. It never happened. The only relic of that entire project is the hastily concocted 100% affordable housing overlay that even that has been going through dozens of major modifications at the same time we, the public, are supposed to be learning and discussing its details. The full details have still not emerged. There is no way Cambridge can satisfy more than a small percentage of the demand for affordable housing, but it should do at least what it reasonably can without totally forgetting its obligations to all income levels of its current residents. The proposed 100% affordable housing overlay totally ignores and dangerously conflicts with the goals of all 5 left behind Envision subcommittees on climate and environment, mobility, community well-being, urban form, and economy. That makes no sense. Cambridge needs a well-thought-out plan that both increases affordable housing and enhances quality of life in our wonderful city. We have the talent to put that together. The 100% affordable housing overlay plan is a disaster. We need to go back to the drawing boards and do it right.
Thank you for your testimony. Fred Meyer, after which Stephen Kaiser, then Teresa Hamaker.
Fred Meyer, 83 Hammond Street. Through you, Madam Chair, to the whole council. I'd like to ask you to think of questions that people are asking me that I honestly don't know the answer to. The waiting list, where is it? How do people sign up? What are the criteria used to fill the waiting list? Is it by order of sign up or by some measure of merit, or is preference given to certain worthy categories of people like child care workers or city employees? What are the income limits, excuse me? And
Please keep your voice up. It's hard to hear.
Yes, thank you for telling me. And if the people chosen for this get a raise, do they have to move out, and if so, how soon? Can you have buildings designated for worthy categories like city employees or social workers or clergy or other obviously worthy categories? Do you have models, or at least street level views that you can show for each neighborhood so residents can see what the maximum proposed new building would look like? Is it scary or is it not? I mean, we ought not to argue about this, we ought to show it. Why are you eliminating reviews by boards of zoning appeals? I've probably sat through 24 Board of Zoning Appeals in my 55 years of real estate hearings, and not once have I not seen those worthy volunteers not improve a building by their requirements and their negotiations with the developer. Why leave them out?
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Stephen Kaiser, followed by Teresa Hammaker, followed by Wei Yi.
Yes, about 2 weeks ago, draft zoning language was released to the public for the first time. Of all the speakers tonight, I've heard very little mention that this zoning even exists, and almost nobody commented on it. I'm disappointed in my own citizens. My own review is a detailed review sent to the manager and the council and to the city clerk. And I appreciate the city clerk's office for including my comments within this public comment document. I'm still unhappy that there's been no release of the envision plan. How can we do a review of zoning if we don't have the plan in front of us? As far as I can tell, it's 99% complete. By the end of this week, before the next meeting on April 25th, get that report released. Get it out, get it out, get it out. Now, my conclusion on the quality of the draft zoning is that it is very disappointing. I believe the text was drafted by real estate lawyers. I have seen their past poor quality of work in the past. We must do better. Give an example of a particular absurdity in the draft zoning. It specifies a 7.5-foot side setback and then allows a 10-foot deck. The deck would completely span the 7.5-foot setback and go 2.5 feet into the neighbor's yard. This sort of work reduces zoning to a comedy of errors. We can't have that in Cambridge. What I would like to see is I believe that CDD has much better capabilities in zoning and can write a much better zoning document. Ask them to do a complete rewrite. Thank you.
Mr. Kaiser. Teresa Hammaker, followed by Wei Yi, after Jennifer Storazum, lives at 275 Summer Street.
Teresa Hammaker, 95 Raymond Street. I must admit I'm bemused to be in a Cambridge meeting where the words good and responsible are used in conjunction with the word developer. As a homeowner, I have to admit that I'm concerned about the very broad as-of-right rights being granted to developers, no matter how good and responsible. I would ask the council to look at whether those rights can be narrowed or tailored to reflect needs in specific neighborhoods. Also, I'm a member of the Avon Hill Neighborhood Conservation District Commission, and I really don't understand how this is going to interact with our historic districts. And I'm not saying that historic importance should overweigh housing needs, and I'm an advocate for more density in the city, but I wonder whether there's been enough thought put into how some of these things are going to interact and what the worst consequences of this might be. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Wei Yi, followed by Jennifer Storazum, it looks like, in New Pier, that lives at 20 Alston Street.
Hi, my name is Wei Yi, and I'm a master's student at Harvard University studying critical conservation. My graduate studies revolves around investigation how historical regulations, zonings, and policies creates exclusion or inclusion intentionally or unintentionally for their residents. Therefore, I see the affordable housing overlay as an inclusive opportunity for the city, and I will support that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Jennifer Storzen. I apologize for not saying your name correctly. Nupir Marias at 20 Alston Street, followed by Tina Alu.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Storozum. I live in the Porter Square neighborhood, and I also work in Cambridge. And although my address is technically just across the city line in Somerville, I spend a significant portion of my life in Cambridge, whether it's shopping at Porter Square or traveling to and from my workplace in Cambridge. And as I walk the streets of Cambridge, it makes me frankly angry to see streets lined with houses and developments I know that I will almost certainly never be able to afford. And, you know, I'm one of the so-called blow-in gentrifiers. I work in tech, I'm young, I'm white, I earn a good salary, and I still can't afford to live in Cambridge. And if people like me are also worrying about how we're going to afford to live near the places that we work, how can we expect people that actually make this city function? It's public servants, teachers, service workers, nurses, firefighters, activists, anybody who makes Cambridge the unique city that it is. How can we expect those kinds of people to survive and contribute to the thriving and diverse community in Cambridge if even our, you know, the people that, you know, make a lot of money and, you know, might not have a storied history living here can't afford to, you know, even rent? I think that I would like to urge the council, the committee, and also the residents of Cambridge to not make perfect the enemy of good in terms of this affordable housing overlay. Let's have Cambridge lead the way in so many ways that it does already nationally, tackling this regional and frankly national crisis that is, you know, causing life to be difficult for all kinds of people in the area. So I wholeheartedly support the affordable housing overlay, and I urge my fellow citizens to do the same. Thank you.
For your testimony. Nupir Morai, followed by Tina Alu, and then Nicola Williams.
Hi, my name is Nupur Monani, and I'm a resident of Cambridge Port on Alston Street. I'm an urban planner and professionally work on reconciling a lot of the issues that we've heard about today concerning affordable housing. And I just want to say that there are tools within the sort of professional realm, and CDD urban planners are more than qualified to help resolve some of these issues. I'm here to urge the committee to take the next step and put this in front of the ordinance committee to then rely on the legislative process to give us the time to talk about these issues. We're at a very important moment in Cambridge where pushing this to the next step will open the door to many subsequent conversations about affordable housing policy and funding that can pave the way to making the city more livable for everyone involved. But this is a necessary first step, and it's going to set the right precedent for all of those future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Tina Alu, followed by Nicola Williams, followed by Jessica Bias.
My name is Tina Alu. I live at 113.5 Pleasant Street, and I'm here tonight to support the affordable housing overlay. I had originally planned on using my testimony tonight to challenge some of the false information that people have been stating as facts. But then someone forwarded to me today a letter that had been sent recently to Cambridge homeowners to urge them to write letters to the City Council to oppose the overlay. I guess it wasn't sent to all homeowners because I certainly didn't receive one. Makes me wonder which homeowners were targeted with the letter. Although this letter also had false information in it, it was the tone of the letter that made me cringe. It said things like, if the proposed 100% affordable housing overlay is passed, it will affect every neighborhood, including yours, bolded and in all caps. It will change forever the look and feel of our city and its remarkable neighborhoods. We have demonstrated our commitment as a welcoming community by already having one of the highest rates of affordable housing in the entire state. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't sound like a community that values equity, diversity, and increased affordable housing so more people will be able to afford to live in Cambridge. Well, maybe it does, as long as they're not living in certain neighborhoods. Anti-density zoning contributes to racial segregation, while zoning to permit denser development allows communities to become more racially integrated. Maintaining current zoning laws disproportionately harms people of color and low-income families. You have a choice to make with your vote on the affordable housing overlay. The city's zoning decisions can either perpetuate a segregated city, or you can support an opportunity to create a community where every person, regardless of their race and income, has equitable access to the opportunities and resources that the city of Cambridge offers. Which way will you vote? I encourage you to pass this on to the Ordinance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Nicola Williams, followed by Jessica Byers, followed by Warnham, 40 Royal Avenue, and Schwa Warren, 40 Royal Avenue.
Good evening, councilors. So I just have a few questions today. Nicola Williams, 8 Brewer Street. I am 100% for housing that is affordable for all Cambridge residents. I have a few questions about the overlay. What is the likelihood that the affordable housing overlay will serve our housing needs? I have these questions because I'm just not sure. I mean, I look through the documents which keep changing, but I understand that it might be for the good. How many people will actually benefit? Is it true that it's only 100 units from this overlay if the city provides up to $20 million? I'm also unsure if our low-income residents will even qualify if they need subsidies. And I think it's about 19,000 people, 19,000 people on the subsidy list. So really, how many people can this serve? How will the overlay process be accountable to these subsidized residents, which I am very concerned about? So please, I'm asking the city to be responsible and be transparent to these vulnerable residents. As of right zoning is an issue around the whole affordable housing for nonprofit developers, and I understand that. So why can't we, the city, address this and fix the existing zoning? Why can't we fix the existing zoning to respond to the priority, which is being able to build everywhere for nonprofit housing? There's got to be something to deal with that.
Thank you for your testimony. If it's in writing, please leave it in the basket. Jessica Byers, and then we have Warnham and Schwan Warren from Royal Avenue. Carolyn Shipley, followed by John Pitkin.
Good evening, thank you. Carolyn Shipley, 15 Laurel Street. Naturally, like everyone in this room, I'm for affordable housing. We have a lot of affordable housing in Cambridge. I have a lot of friends who live in affordable housing. So I'm not against affordable housing. What I'm against is this proposed legislation which will take away my right to appeal a design on my street that I don't like. It will take away everyone's right of appeal. In spite of what the 2 documents published through this committee say, there could be review. Yes, we could go before the planning board and we could all talk, but it's a waste of our energy and our time and our breath because the developer has the right. Only the developer. Now, the definition of as of right is not to be found in those two documents. You have to really look for it. And it turns out it's a footnote in tiny type on a single-page handout that's printed on both sides, mostly in dark blue ink. Most people don't have that, but it's not even on the city website. So here is a provision of this affordable housing overlay that takes away our First Amendment right of free speech and our right to say to a developer, I don't like your design, it's objectionable, it's too big for my street, whatever. That's one thing. The other thing is the working draft that we found out on the table on March 28th talks about setbacks and open space.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is John Pitkin, followed by Derek Copen. John Pitkin?
He's upstairs, he's coming.
Okay. And after John Pitkin, there's Derek Copen and then Sean Hope. Mr. Pitkin's here, so if you can just wait. Mr. Pitkin, please come forward.
Thank you, Councilor Simmons. I was in the balcony and I didn't realize I was next. John Pitkin, 18 Fayette Street. I live in Cambridge because it was affordable when I settled here almost 50 years ago, and so I certainly hope that some of the people who are lobbying for it today, young people who are lobbying for it today, are able to be here, to settle here, and make their homes here. And we are in a crisis of affordability. Let's be clear. This is a self-inflicted problem. The zoning for commercial development has resulted in spectacular amounts of development with increases in city revenues and pressure on the housing supply. We hear about people commuting 50, 60 miles to jobs in Cambridge. It's not going to be solved. This problem is not going to be solved just in Cambridge, and we have to lead. I think I'm concerned that this proposal is not something that we're going to see emulated in Arlington and the towns around us where a lot more of this problem needs to be met. I think I'm not necessarily opposed to the affordable housing overlay, but I am concerned that the analysis of the amount of increase in development in many instances is so great that some degree of binding review is required at the upper limit. So maybe there could be a gradation of up to a certain amount. It could be as of right, and above that, there would have to be binding review. For example, in my neighborhood, 7 stories on Cambridge Street, which is narrower than a lot of the other streets for where 7 stories would be allowed now as of right, might not be appropriate. That's just one example. There are others. But this is clearly not a problem. The affordability crisis is not going to be solved only in Cambridge. And if we overdo it and we make people unhappy, we're just not going to help the larger solution.
Our next speaker is Derek Copen, followed by Sean Hope.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Derek Copen, 8 Wright Street. These zoning changes will have a profound and likely irreversible impact on our neighborhoods and will deeply affect all of our lives. The plan that has been delivered to the council and presented to the public lacks detail that is essential to understanding the impact of these developments on our community. In multiple meetings, council members have rightly asked questions about design standards, clarity of language, green space, setbacks, sustainability, and net zero certification. In a community with a diversity of values, it is the role of the council to balance these values relative to each other. To almost every question, the members of the planning board and their team give answers with many words and no numbers. There should be data to answer all of these questions. These documents should contain a table with 3 columns. The first column should be a list of design trades. The second column should be the number of additional affordable units that we get for that trade-off. and the third column should contain the percent incremental cost increase to the developer. For instance, many of us would like to know, why can't you build these buildings net zero when the Seaport District already floods and parts of Cambridge may be underwater in our lifetime? What is the cost of having more green space? What is the quantifiable benefit to relaxing setback requirements? Until you have data to answer all of these questions, it is irresponsible for this proposal to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Sean Hope, followed by Becca Schofield, followed by Roger. I can't see his last name.
Good evening, members of the committee. Sean Hope, 22 Fairmont Avenue in Cambridge. I'll be brief. I support the overlay. I believe this is a social justice issue, and I applaud the council for taking this on and moving this petition forward to ordinance. I want to address one false premise that I've heard several times at the council and on the neighborhood blogs. That is that somehow this overlay seeks to deprive affordable residents of trees and open space. To me, this comment could only be made by someone who has forgotten or who has never had to struggle to make ends meet. I believe we can both have more affordable housing and be environmentally responsible. I take this point and give you an example. To me, this is really a question of choice. If you can afford to spend $1 million on a small condo in Porter Square, for example, you get to decide if you have a car, if you live near transit, if you have a place for the backyard, if you have trees. That's a choice that you have in the market. But for affordable developments, as we've talking about, we have now added the burden. We want to make sure you have trees. We want to make sure you have parking. We want to make sure you have things that are not available in the market. This has the effect for many affordable housing developments of making them not viable. So I would say we want to give affordable residents the choice. We want to build housing that is close to transit. Some of those may have parking, some of those may not. But we want to give them the choice the same way market rate residents have. And the question is, who is pushing this burden of parking, of trees, of open space, when the reality is on some sites they just may not be available? In this conversation, who's been pushing this burden? Largely it's been the haves, the people who own property, who have this choice. And it's interesting that they are speaking on behalf of the people who don't have a choice. And I find that self-serving. So I would say we want diversity of housing. Some is going to have cars, some is going to have trees, and some will not. But I think we need to create a diversity of housing, and I would like to have an equal burden for new affordable housing as is existing in the market. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Becca Schofield, followed by Roger Flumry, 96 Harvard Street.
Hi, everybody. My name is Becca Schofield. My parents live at 35 North Street in Cambridge. Affordable housing is our city's most urgent issue. It's the #1 concern for the majority of residents. So I want to ask the committee and the council to imagine the housing we could have, the new families we could welcome, rather than fear of an extra story or two. So to me, it's a question of priorities, and the affordable housing overlay and passing it is a #1 priority. It's a tool that can support affordable housing. There's a lot more that we can and should do to build more. It's a step in the right direction. So please don't let perfect be the enemy of the good here. There will be a review process. This does not threaten citizens' rights. There are still controls in place to make future affordable housing developments contextual, sustainable, and livable. There's been a lot of evidence presented about how affordable housing development is currently very, very challenging, and housing professionals and advocates around the city are supporting this effort as one of many strategies to make our city more inclusive. We should listen. I work for a nonprofit affordable housing developer. We've spent tons of time and energy looking for sites to create new units on vacant sites or looking to acquire buildings, convert them to affordable apartments. So we can't compete without the edge that the overlay would provide. And as someone who grew up in Cambridge and was priced out, as an affordable housing advocate, as someone who cares deeply about equitable development in our city, I urge you to support the overlay. Please help Cambridge be a city we're proud of. And finally, thanks for such an inclusive process. It's been a privilege to participate in this conversation and hear so many stories of people's personal housing experiences. Deeply appreciate the chance to talk through this proposal, and now it's time to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Roger? Karen Davis, followed by Adam Goldso.
Hi, I'm Karen Davis. I live at 15 Walker Street, and I haven't been able to follow this as closely as I would have liked but I have some concerns. But I'd like to start by saying that the map of, what's it called, affordable units by census block shows 0 affordable apartments in my neighborhood, which is West Cambridge. And I have an affordable apartment in my house, and I think a lot of us do. I mean, I have a tenant that I've had for 30 years, and I want to keep that tenant. And I think those people who have a tenant living in their house you're practically living with that person, and you care about retaining them, and you care about keeping the rent low. So that is what I do, and I don't think that I'm unique. So I think, I don't know how you're going to find out how many people do this, but the number is not 0 for West Cambridge as far as affordable housing apartments are concerned. So I've lived for over 30 years in a block that's similar to the one in the overlay graphic that shows a large 100% affordable housing building in the middle of a block just like mine, 2.5 stories buildings. My block was built out from 1850 to about 1900, and all of those houses are still there, and they retain their historic integrity. And the streetscape is valuable to us who live here on it. It is a block that doesn't have apartment buildings, and those of us who have bought property there have paid a premium for our houses, as opposed to houses on houses on streets like Chauncey, Linney, and Shepherd that have really got a lot of apartment buildings and some institutional uses.
Ms. Davis, I want to thank you for your testimony. Okay. If it's written, you can leave it in the basket. Adam Goldstein.
Hi, my name is Adam Goldstein. I live at 120 Henry Street. I work for a firm that consults with nonprofits who are building affordable housing, and from that perspective, I think this overlay's success will lie in its understanding of the system in this state that funds 100% affordable housing. To build 100% affordable housing is extremely expensive and almost by definition relies heavily on subsidy from the state of Massachusetts. This subsidy is extremely competitive, and historically neighborhoods and communities and cities do not receive more than a few grants of this subsidy from the state annually. It is not as if this overlay will suddenly spur dozens of developments and thousands of affordable units. It will allow the nonprofits in Cambridge who do this work and do it well to have at least one project in the state's subsidy pipeline annually, allowing them to not miss out on this valuable funding as they did in this past round of subsidy. We're realistically talking about 1 to 3 developments of 40 to 60 units a year, and I think it's really important that that's at no additional direct cost to the taxpayer. This is not going to solve the affordable housing crisis in Cambridge. I think, as somebody said before, it is an important piece of the puzzle, but it will ensure the city does not lose out on the state's grants of housing funds. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. That concludes the names that are on the list. Is there anyone that did not sign up that would like to, if you come forward, we are scheduled for 2 hours and we will continue public comment until 8 o'clock. Please give your name and address for the record. And if people could queue up over here behind this young lady, that'd be great.
My name is Chris Mack and I live at 48 JFK Street in Cambridge. I'd like to sort of speak to what I think is sort of dramatic tone of the meeting and the moral competition that we see and have heard in this afternoon between a very well-organized, if not well-funded, group with stickers and having recruited lots of passionate young people to their side on one side, and a ragtag group of property owners and renters such as myself who see that this is more complex than what has been presented, and that the moral center and attachment of values of justice and affordability do not belong on one side, the more organized side tonight, than the other. I'd also like to make a second distinction between direct and indirect approaches to solving this problem, and I believe that the overlay relies on an indirect approach of incentivizing developers who have plenty of other ways of making money, and we need not add to that. A more direct approach, like building on city properties, on parking garages, the East Cambridge Courthouse, is a much more direct and ultimately more productive way of achieving affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Adrian Musgrave.
Thank you very much. Adrienne Musgrave, up in North Cambridge at 48 Haskell. I want to thank the Housing Committee for allowing so much public comment to be shared and for also allowing people to listen in on your roundtable. We've learned a lot through this process, and it sounds like the policy order that we're discussing today is ready to move on. And I would really like to encourage the same kind of pace that we've taken with other important proposals and to move it to the Ordinance Committee so that it can have the next step in the process. Thank you so much. I'm a big supporter of the overlay and appreciate the multiple comments that this is a small but important step to keep Cambridge affordable.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a current student at the Harvard Graduate
Please
School.
say your name again.
Oh, Hannah Mahmood.
Henna.
Henna. Henna.
Last name?
Mahmood.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm a current student at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, and I'm here to testify my support for the overlay. I'll give a personal story. I grew up in an affordable housing unit in a mixed-income neighborhood in Queens, New York. At one point, there were 12 of us crammed into a one-bedroom apartment, which, as you can imagine, is not conducive to healthy development. But because our home was situated in a place within walking distance to parks, libraries, shops, schools, and ample green space, I had opportunities and my go-to spots to retreat and to work. And I vividly remember moments of despair and insecurity being quickly washed away because I knew I could go on walks, I could grab a book or play some ball. And it is because these options were available to me that I was able to persevere through the struggles, to work hard, to study hard, and eventually land a full scholarship to attend Columbia University and now Harvard. I'm here now, strong, healthy, and living meaningfully because of affordable housing. Indeed, many of us are one crisis away from needing affordable housing, whether it's getting laid off, having a critical health condition, becoming a grad student, or simply being born into impoverished circumstances. So I say let's push forward with affordable housing so that we can all persevere through the struggles. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker. Please give your name and address of the record.
My name is Robert O'Neill, 175 Holworthy Street, Cambridge. I was born in Cambridge and have lived in the Strawberry Hill neighborhood for 29 years. It's a fairly dense neighborhood, but still has open spaces and tree canopy here and there. I do not support the proposed overlay because it allows as-of-right development standards that substantially relax the zoning ordinance Article 5 development standards regarding building height, floor area ratio, density, yard setbacks, and percent open space, and because it's exempt from the city tree cutting moratorium. I'm very familiar with the zoning standards because my wife and I recently applied to the BZA for a zoning variance to renovate our home. We put considerable effort and resources into the design to meet the zoning standards, to fit the house, particularly the roof line, to the neighborhood. We minimized floor area increase and maintained the open space that we already had. We involved our neighbors in the review, in the design of the process, solicited their comments and incorporated their comments into our designs, and attended many BZA hearings to assess the concerns of the board and testifying neighbors. It was a big effort, but it was worth it to us. Before applying for the variance, we had spent years deciding whether to stay in our house and renovate or to move out of the neighborhood. We chose to stay with the expectation that the Cambridge zoning standards and the BZA approval process would provide a mechanism by which to have that we would have input into the changes in our neighborhood and into the future of the neighborhood. The proposed overlay, if approved, takes that opportunity out of our hands, which is specifically the purpose of the zoning ordinance in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that did not sign up? Anyone in the rafters that would like to speak? No, I'm good. Okay. Hearing no other individuals interested in speaking, we will close public comment on a motion by the mayor to close public comment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment is now closed. I'm going to thank all of you for coming this evening as a part of this vibrant and informative discussion on affordable housing in Cambridge. I would like to make you aware that on April 25th, we will be having a City Council Committee on Housing will meet again in committee. There will be public comment, a part of that meeting as well. It starts at 6 p.m., and it's going to be here in the council chamber. I appreciate your time and your attendance, and please all have a good night. Meeting is adjourned. On a motion by the Vice Mayor, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the meeting is adjourned. Good evening.
It's not as simple as it seems. You know, just because one side is free.
Yeah, but it was still.
Right, that's right. Good, well, I appreciate it.
Just jumped out at me.
Good. What's your name?
John.
Chris Mack.
Next. Oh, Mack. Yeah. I wrote John. Doesn't make it easy. But thanks for
Sure.
Thanks for
Thank you.
It's a little nice to hear.
Where do you live?
Pretty close to the fire station.
Okay.
I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah. What's your take on that? Yeah.
Every time I read people's comments, I think that makes sense too. You know, so I great overview. I do think there was something in the letter in the Cambridge Chronicle mentioned 18 taxes. I mean, taxes. Really surprising. Talk to people about occasionally they come up with conversations.
My son is a senior.
Anyway, how have you been?
Good. Working on this all the time.
That actually provides the city coverage.
Okay. What's your deadline? Because I'm going away the rest of this week, so.
Oh yeah, so
Next week?
are you leaving tomorrow?
I am totally booked tomorrow, and I'm leaving Thursday morning.
Are you gonna like back to work?
Well, appreciate you.
I'll be back Sunday night, so could you do Monday?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's do Monday at 12, at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock?
Yeah, if you could come in here, that would be great.
Alright. And we can all spend here, like, as if we have 3 years.
Yeah, that's fine. Just come to the mayor's office and